So just come off the podcast, and it's like there was so much I wanted more to say. So I'm going to share a little bit now. Whether I put this out or not, probably will put it out though. And then when we talk about people passing away, it's really good, really, for the person to experience the passing of someone close, to share their experience, and it's still objective to them. It's like when we talk about birth, we have an idea, but if you're not given birth, we don't truly authentically know. Even my partner was mentioning about, I don't really know what it's like to have other siblings. And I said, well, it's a bit like, your half brothers and sisters. No, but she says, no, but I wasn't really with them. And how she's seen me, youngest of 6, and relates to some of my stories and my relationship, she just honestly cannot really perceive it. So we cannot really perceive a lost one, close lost one, until we have experienced it a few times. We cannot truly experience giving birth until we really truly give birth. And then how caught up we are in ourselves will determine how we experience the loss of a close one, and how we experience birth, death, birth, similar concept really. So that's a big thing I realize. We can use words, we can say words, and we can, reiterate many beautiful and potentially not so beautiful words. However, for me, it's like to walk the talk, keep walking it, go around the block, be around the block quite a few times before sharing something. And is that me? It's not really me. It's my person shown, okay, you can share that now, Pete. Not from the me, id, ego, identity me. Going to use this vessel now. Now you're potentially a bit more wiser, potentially a bit more unselfish, potentially less ego caught up in the programs. And there was an amazing one I thought I wanted to share it with the Jin Shin Jiatsu. There's Mary Burmeister. She learned it or shared it, the gift, many, many years, and then she would just share it. She had a family, and then she would just share it with family and friends. And she didn't really truly go full proactive until the children was older. So there's probably 20 odd years she was sharing that before she actually really, really spoke about it. So there's 18 years me, which is less. But if I waited again till my daughter was another 20, it'd be another 20 years. So I'm sharing that now, the bits I know and my experience of the Jinshin Jiatsu, astrology. Yes, they're not crutches. They're not. I don't need them as crutches. They're bringing us back, a remembrance, and to help us to remember. The issue is us. The issue is our thinking. The issue is how we portray things. The issue is us spiritually bypassing. The issue is us just reiterating certain words and not walking the talk, not embody them. So we clean out, we be more experienced, we be more godly, divinely, Mother Earthly, whatever words we want to use. And then whatever we do from that becomes them words I just mentioned. So yeah, there was lots on the podcast. So passing, death, it is a program. However, yes, if there's pain, go into the pain, come out. Don't hang around in that. I was blown away by my first sister who passed away. I was 27, 28, and she is 33. Amazing sister, amazing, and played major parts for all the 5 who were left, and especially for the mum. So that was epic for me, due to having some esoteric, whatever we want to call it, Moors, whatever we want to call it, chemic, awareness, teachings, learnings, astrology, daily diary, daily dreams, inner introspective work. So she passed. Yeah, I grieved. Didn't hang in it. Wasn't mind. It wasn't me thinking. It was just like, whoa, grieved a bit. And why am I feeling guilty that my body was vibrating such on a high? I could not believe it. And I'm having to hold it down. I'm feeling guilty that my body was feeling so elevated, so in ecstasy, should I say. So, and then in my dreams, my sisters come to me in my dreams, and so that's my reality. That's Pete's reality. That's lots of other people's reality, but maybe they don't share it because, people will discard them and they may lose loads of followers, etc. However, that's my reality. And so what I realized along the lines, what Sabina mentioned about having a child, she mentioned, I realized how more so selfish I was, and I became more selfless. So within death and all our experiences really are very from a selfish perspective. Depression, self-absorbed emotions, really we're oppressed, come out of the oppression. So that was a beautiful witness. And then, witnessing of a close member passing, before that, when I was 19, me and my partner, we lost our first child. She went 9 months, we named her Danielle, in the womb. And the heart stopped beating. So that for a 19-year-old, and she was 21, but for the mum, how traumatic the experience would be for someone. However, if there was more support around, more awareness, we see the gift, I see the gift in it. I'm not just making it up. We can talk like this, but if we're going to talk like this, have the experience, please, please, please. Don't, just reiterate people who have either wrote it down in books or who are saying these words. Have the experience, and still the experience is subjective to that person. So, because honestly, what I realize is I realized from an early age, Pete, you don't mention things till you've embodied them. To what extent I embody them, who knows? But because to be accountable, when we put things out into the universe, and if we aren't in line, it comes back tenfold. And I don't want to spell myself with that, but that's just what I noticed. And astrology has been an amazing tool for me. Friends have got in touch. What's going on, Pete? And then sometimes I don't see anything. And one friend cracking down, there definitely is. Definitely. I'm like, I can't see anything. And then I look again and it's like, whoa, I didn't really take into consideration or give too much emphasis on Chiron. And then, wow, he's got Chiron on his sun. And it depicted exactly what's going on. A friend's got Mars opposing Pluto. It's depicting exactly what's going on for him. Someone's got Neptune square their ascendant, square their moon. It's depicting what's going on for her. And it's just like, it's mathematical. It's like quantum physics. Someone could say, well, yeah, there's 13 signs, etc. It's still, how we was taught it is still very relevant. And then we can, if we read ahead, we can influence. That is a truth. However, why not look ahead and then take more precaution. It brings you back home. I don't look at it. I wasn't looking at it for years, for years and years and years. And then, let's just say in my more clean and out, desensitized self, my higher self or true self comes through more and guides me more. In relation to meditation, I did lots of meditation in my teens. And then it came out of the group, family, children, and then bump into these same people 5, 6, 10, even up to 15 years later, and still in the groups and still doing the very same thing. And it's like, didn't we do that when I was in the groups? However, we need to be careful with meditation. Everyone's throwing out meditate. I truly agree. Form of art, form of meditation. However, we are in default. Have we got tools to really deal with what comes up? The more we go into yoga, qigong, dance, or whatever, it opens us up more. Have we got the tools to actually look at the next layer, Or we're just going to excuse ourselves and go into anger, blame, guilt, etc. So what I would say about meditation, and then I had the opportunity, I was in India, and I did, at the end of my visit there for nearly 3 months, met some really interesting people, like-minded people, and then they were sannyasis. So I went to an ashram, the Pune ashram. However, meditation, I'm like, oh my word, I would love to get these Westerners over here to this form of meditation. Because what I see is we can stay in a bubble. We can stay in a bubble and a bubble. And, and we get very clever. Let's just say from our chakras up. In these meditations, when I was 17, people coming back with amazing journeys. Clairvoyant, Claudian, images from Egypt, images from, it was just like, wow, mind blown. Mine was very physical based, and mine was just very what was going on for me in that time and moment. However, what I noticed, I was in 2 groups. This group you could say was working downwards. The other group was working up, So the other group was, we go in, into the cave, into the subconscious, and then go up. So what I noticed, we had no choice there, and it was beautiful being in the 2 groups. The one with the going from the top chakra down, let's just say, I'll use that term, we can use many terms, would get so amazing in their clairvoyant, Claudian, etc., astrology, whatever it is, but wouldn't go into past, let's just say, the solar plexus, deal with what goes on in the manipulation or power struggles, solar plexus, or the sacral energy, of the sexual and pleasure energy, which we've all been perverted. And then the base chakra, really, which is more, you could say, our animal instincts, our survival instincts, where we shove everything down and we just try and bury it. So that was amazing. So to all you meditators, and all we just say meditate, or just come from the heart, I probably have a bone to pick with you people. Of course there's truth in that. There's truth in so many things. My experience is we need to have a real good protocol, because you can meditate and you're just looping, you're given little insights, but it's little insights. It's not really the whole picture. It's not really going to the seed. And I would say on purpose, not really, let's just say there was a podcast last month when people, relate to, which was beautiful. She related to remembering saying when she was 6 months and the parents left for 3 days, and that would scarred her for most of her life, or kept her in a certain trait. I believe so true, but if we go back from being a father, experiencing traumatic birth, experience our first born, not being born, experiencing, not cesarean actually, but experiencing traumatic birth to good births, to more authentic births. What I realize is there's so much trauma there. Why are we all forgetting that part? We do mention it. Dory mentions it. We do mention it. But why don't we look at that, More natural birthing, more or less traumatized, and look at lotus births, Why aren't we doing lotus births? Why aren't we keeping the placenta so much longer? Why aren't we allowing the cord to die naturally, just dissolve? I mean, I had the most epic journey in terms of skin to skin, just 10 days, me and my partner, only us in the field of our newborn. Lotus birth for 5 days, I think, before the cord dried out. But I think this is all a bit too much for people. It was honestly epic. They say that's the twin of us. Sometimes it's a bit too deep that we don't want to go there, So, I remember chatting on at the festival. It's just like, well, personally, I just see people go glazed when I say certain things, and that's fine. So that was epic. And then what about us all coming through birth? We talk about pain, but it was just natural. It's just normal. And what about when I'm laying down and over nights and nights and thinking the wood beams are cracking, and where's that cracking coming from? And then I realise it's my son's bones cracking in the evening. It's like, whoa, so we all go through that. But this just is okay, So here we are in our programs of pain, love, compassion, whatever. And we've been, by default, we've just been messed up. We have messed up ideas, and we've been used to reinforce these belief systems and these entities. We create them, So, and the word of pain, the word of gain, the word of love, here I am even mentioning it, Am I worthy of even going in? Me, the stuff I've done, am I even worthy? But I'm going to say here I am now anyway, sharing some of this. So just come from the heart, meditate. It's a little bit more than that, Really find something that really can ground you, reset our nervous system. Again, I mentioned computers. We defect the computer. We have a cleaner to clean it every so often. We have a shield. How is our shield? Is it compromised? Have we really reinforced it? Are we keep acquiescing to things, whether it's dairy, meat? Are we acquiescing to bring in certain ritual energy into our field, not so good energy coming into our field that compromises our field, things we cannot even conceive that I've been shown. So, why this happens to me, or why people don't take no notice of me, because if you're not taking notice of yourself, then that's why that's happening to you. And if it's happening to you, it's because you are doing it to yourself. Anyway, there were a few things I wanted to share after the podcast. There was so much said. We talk about we are behind, the Dongan tribe, Aboriginal tribe. And again, I mentioned the unwritten, you have to dig deep, African tribes, i.e. Ethiopian Bible through the 7. So we can, I used to reiterate Genghis Khan or whoever, whatever, because that was my program, And, for a mixed race, what do you want to call it? Anyway, man of color, man of half melanin rich person. In the UK, what was I seeing there? You know, all the role models, really. Actually, there was a couple who were melanin rich, but there was this, you know, Batman, Superman, John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson. Was that Charles Bronson? St. Bronson's, anyway. They were all, you know, Caucasian fellas, should I say, and that's fine. And then what was I looking at over the years in terms of my journey? I realized in my meditation, Jinshin with my meditation or proactive meditation, I got the insight, Pete, you're just looking at, you know, my mum's side of authors or, you know, scholars. It's like, whoa, and you know what came through? That the melanin rich don't know nothing. Wow, and I watched that thought, I caught that thought. And it's like, wow, so that was programmed into my mind. So I started researching, you know, Dr. Africa, Sebi, there were many more. I mean, obviously, recently over the many, many years of being very privileged to meet Honourable Priest Kailash. So I, on purpose, researched more Black history, Black melanin-rich history. And, oh my word, you know, the inventors of many things, and it was just amazing. So why do I bring that up? Because it's just a story. They are just stories. However, they're stories that have very relevance on our imprinting and our program, and a lot of hidden history. So for me, just my journey, we touched on death, you know. They've been really liberating for me. My sister passing, my mum passing, for me, they've all come back in my dreams. And I did mention on the podcast, it was what's been the most healthiest thing or we've done, something like that. We wanted to share. So why I brought up being proactive with some messages I'm getting in my early hours was because why it is healthy. Because if I don't listen, I don't get any sleep for days and days and days until I be proactive and listen. And the topic, there's a few topics, but there was a topic, this may come out, well, they will get to see. You know, with a niece from 10 years ago, there's a story there, and it'd be really lovely to, you know, get in touch. Hope she does get in touch. You know, why? Because I had my mum in my dream in tears, Pete, and trying to explain. I'm not sure why the youngest nephew was in it, because that wasn't the true scene we had. It was a scene with the nephew and her partner. My mum, tears, crying that, you know, etc., was for you guys, you know, and trying to explain it to the youngest nephew, which was interesting. So I'm sure you get to see this. And me just giving a hug, you know, don't worry, Mum, it's all good, you know, yeah, okay, I will follow it through, you know. So that was that part of the journey. And that was to do with one of the healthiest things I've done, I can share. That was following through. Otherwise, I don't get sleep, and that makes it very unhealthy for me for days and days. Another topic, I was not getting sleep for days and days and days until I did the festival, the Simply Gorgeous Festival. I didn't know I was going to do it. I didn't really want to be doing it. It's not down to me. So when I decided, it's like, okay, then I could sleep, you know, and Pete, why don't you do it earlier? Why don't you do it earlier? Well, it's not down to me, you know. If I get shown to jump, I jump. If I get shown to sit, I sit. You know, and another thing was the Mahat, you know, the weighing of the scales. That was really interesting. Sorry, the weighing of your heart, and all to do with Mahat and the Eye of Horus and the Ankh. I was shown to play it paint it, draw it on our catering trailer. And I ignored it for days and days and days. And then one night I'm saying, Hannah, we've got to do this tonight. And it's like, it's tomorrow. We're doing it opening tomorrow. I know. So there we were that evening, painting it on a board, big board, so we could get it on our trailer. So, and then I look into it more. I knew little bit about, Egyptian history, a story on Egyptian, anyway. So it was amazing. We are in Mahat times. That's what I was showing. We are truly in the Mahat times, the weighing of our hearts. The more we can lighten our heart, the more we can desensitize, the more we can be we won't get devoured by this animal creature, really. We won't be, I would say, staying more in the lower realms, and we'll be less puppeteered, less triggered, less in the fight or flight, less in the war, so it was very interesting. The weighing of the heart, Mahat, M-A-A-T. And look up Aya Horus and the Ankh.